What comes after a moment like this, it's something new that society has never seen before. And society, generally, societies are used to stability. They don't want shocks. We want our lives to cruise. Don't like bumps. So we're going through a moment where the ANC is exiting the political stage. It's big. You see, Rob is crippled mentally. He cannot think beyond the ANC. I understand that. That's why I think ANC. I have priced in the fact that in my lifetime, in the next about 12 years, the ANC will not be part of a South African government. You know, you would think this chap is crazy. He must have smoked dagga because it's now legal in South Africa. No. If you said this in 1985, you said the National Party would not be the government of South Africa. In 1985, people would have said, no. This chap must have smoked Durban poison or something from Swaziland. In 1985, less than 10 years from that moment, there was no National Party government in South Africa. So you see, this is when history happens. People don't see it coming. Even when it's knocking on the door, they can't recognize that the chap who's knocking outside is history. So the chap who's knocking on our door now is history. The ANC will be out of government in a good 12, 13 years. And I'll explain where that 13 years come from. So now they're sitting at 40%. In 2029, they will go down below 30%. That's their last. And 2034, they are totally out of government. When people form coalition government, they won't even find the ANC, they won't sit in that room. Watch this space. So, realignment moment. Second point. What are we going to look like over the next medium term? Fasten your seatbelts. For the next, a minimum of 15 years, South Africa will be governed by coalition governments. Minimum of 15 years. Around 20 years, actually. And I can work it, I can explain to you how that comes about. So, everyone who is sane and rational knows that come 2029, there is no single party that is going to cross the 50% mark. Unless you are mad. If you're not mad, you know. Umkhonto weSizwe will not get 50% in South Africa. The DA will not get 50% in South Africa in 2029. That won't happen. The chaos will continue 2034. So if you get to 2034, you're now running into the 15 years. So we are going to be governed by a coalition government over the next 15 to 20 years. That means there will be chaos politically. So the idea that you are going to go to a governing party's headquarters, Luthuli House, forget about it, it's not going to happen. You will have to run around a few headquarters of a few parties to get whatever you want to be done. So that's the next 15 years. And you must expect that non-state actors will become more visible and more vocal in trying to claim and get a piece of whatever they want. So expect Operation Dudula to be more vocal. Expect AfriForum to be more vocal, and so on and so forth. The last bit, that is the future, rescuing the future. I think long term, I don't think now. And there are certain things that I see. 4 points, quickly, in 2 minutes. 1, the future of this country is rescuable. Why? Number one, we have one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I didn't live in London and the US, but I've traveled the world. I know what I'm talking about. I've been to London, I've been to the US, I've been everywhere. China, India, name them. This is certainly one of the most beautiful countries. That makes it very difficult for us just to pack up our bags and run. Before we do that, we think, can't we do something? And this leads me to this, as we turn around this thing. Infrastructure can be rebuilt. Infrastructure can be rebuilt. And some of it, by the way, doesn't need to be rebuilt. Let me give you an example. The biggest hospital in South Africa, do you know which one is that? Chris Hani Baragwanath is in Soweto, have been there. ANC is out of government. We've got a new government. You come to me for a formula, I say it's simple. Get there, kick out a deployed cadre who's called the CEO of that hospital, repaint that hospital, clean it, a mop and a bucket, clean the damn thing. And then you say you appoint a new CEO who is professional, qualified, and you say to the guy, no cadres anymore. Here we're doing nursing, we're doing doctoring, we're doing specialists. You don't build a new hospital. The hospital is there. So infrastructure can be rebuilt. Show me an infrastructure that can be rebuilt in South Africa. You can. So that's one. Two, prioritize political criminals. You set up, you get into government, you speak to the Chief Justice, you say to the Chief Justice, you continue doing the law. We're not telling you how to do your law. But political criminals are a special category of criminals. They will be processed very quickly. You want money? My finance minister is going to give you the budget. So that these fellows, you have dedicated capacity in the judiciary. When they are arrested, and it's all public, the cameraman must also go there and show society these chaps are being processed. Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore didn't start with the clerk, started with the minister at the top. Once you arrest that chap there and you process them and you see them in orange uniform, what happens? The clerk stops what they're doing down there. You now turn around the country very quickly because the clerk knows if they can arrest that fat cat, who am I? Who's going to protect me? So you prioritize political criminals. Very clear. The cameras must be there when they're arrested, and there must be a prisoner's day where the new minister of correctional services goes there, and you see these former politicians in orange uniform. Society knows that crime does not pay. That category, by the way, includes even community-level political criminals who ban schools, who ban clinics. It's treason to ban a school in such an arrangement. It's treason to ban a school. You pass a law. The South African Constitution allows it, but there's a thing called minimum sentencing today for corruption is 15 years. So you can have a minimum sentencing of 50 years. You ban a school, you go to jail, 50 years, you're not coming back. A hospital, anything public, you touch it, you go to jail. The third, and I'm coming to my last, and this is critical. You cannot build a house if you don't have bricks and mortar. You can't build a country if you don't have skilled and educated citizens. You've got to give, and I'm going to be specific here, the majority of black children maths and science-oriented quality education. Need a revolution on that. And you don't drag down the standards in white and elite schools. Don't. We're lucky to have those schools, by the way. There are other countries on the continent that don't have that. So we don't need to go outside South Africa to learn in terms of best practices. So you don't do that. But in the elite schools, you must make sure they are truly multiracial. The white kids and the black kids who live in the suburbs, in the city, must go to the same schools so that they can understand each other. This gap that comes from apartheid, where the black elites are sitting somewhere and the white elites are sitting somewhere, having separate conversations, must stop that nonsense going forward. The last part is what Rob talked about. If you want to rescue the future of this country, somebody somewhere must invest specifically in the development of youth leadership. This is a very critical ingredient. No one is doing it now. You need some institution or institutions that is focused on training deliberately youth or young leaders for the future, black and white. You must get the best black kids and the best white kids. Take them through an institution. Make them understand that they are the guardians of the future of the country. I can tell you that can be done. You don't need to go to Plato about philosopher kings and all of that. In a modern context, you can structure a thing like that. If you don't do it, our crisis of leadership becomes a 15 years crisis, a 20 years crisis, a 50 years crisis. But it needs to be arrested. Xolani, I think I've wasted your time. Sorry, man.
Thank you. I'm running through something. You have houses, you have a bond, you are paying a bond. I always say this, your bond possibly is 50,000 per month, and you say your house worth about 10 million, but your house is not having electricity and water. In a way, you are living in a very expensive shack. You see? But there are people who are making you to live in that 10 million shack, you know, that's got no water, no electricity. I would like to do something. There is a guy here. I invited him purposely because him is more close to you than anyone else about the municipality. Sean, can you come? You'll introduce yourself. Don't be that long. He's a wanted, not by the police, by the police, the criminals, and everyone. He's a wanted, I can assure you.
Good morning, all. Xolani ambushed me. I wasn't intending to say anything today. My name's Leo Saunders. I'm a director at a forensic practice in Umhlanga Rocks. I'm also the lead practitioner on the well-publicized Tegwini municipality case involving high-profile political figures that you see on your screens. So the reports that you see that culminated in the racketeering charges against the esteemed erstwhile mayor and others was compiled by myself. I played the role in supporting and assisting the DPCI and the NPCI and the NPA in the asset forfeiture processes in that matter and several other matters of national interest. By way of introduction, I hope that lets you understand why he says I'm a wanted man. KZN is the assassination capital of the country. It ought not to be so. The main driver of many of the assassinations is directed against persons that speak out against corruption or those that actually play integral roles in combating it. I hasten to think that exactly almost 10 years ago, Glenister waged a noble fight before the Constitutional Court. And Glenister, the victory that he won was on the back of a very difficult fight. A fight that talks to some of the stuff that was alluded to just now in dealing with the root causes of corruption and state capture in our country. We have enough law. We have impeccable systems. We have organs of state from the DPCI, from the NPA, to the various organs of state. We've got nice and effective policy frameworks that ought to deal with or equip the state with the mechanisms to deal with state capture. What I think people have missed from the Constitutional Court judgment in Glenister was the important finding of the court, which was the leadership structures or the organizational structure that deals with the organs and the agents of those organs that are tasked with combating corruption and state capture is misaligned. It's misaligned because, and this is not just my view, it's the view of the entire Constitutional Court judges 10 years ago. I'm disappointed that people haven't properly studied that judgment and then, in looking at it, identified the root causes of why we still have state capture and corruption. Of the main causes are the fact that our governance system is such that your political party with the most power or the most votes determines who would take ministerial positions. Those positions are then occupied by political office bearers and not people with technical capacity in those specific fields. For example, we ask why is the NPA inefficient or ineffective in dealing with corruption? Why is there a unit like the DPCI, the Hawks, who are primarily tasked with dealing with organized crime and corruption, not effective? Glenister gave us the answer. We as society failed, in a sense, because we didn't go back and carefully look at what were the judges saying. Imperative in the decision is the fact that the judges said, if we accept that political leaders appoint ministers, then it must be equally accepted that those ministers are aligned to political parties with political ideologies. And if they then appoint DGs and DDGs or heads of those departments, it is more likely and possible and probable that those heads will find it difficult to make independent decisions. And in the judgment with specificity, the court referred to decisions by police personnel as to whether they would investigate or not investigate, arrest or not arrest. Prosecutors who would prosecute or decline to prosecute, or simply limp with the leg with which they ordinarily should sprint. Society sits and watches case after case collapse. And it's amazing, if you go 20 kilometers over the speed limit, you sure as hell are going to meet accountability. Section 195 of the Constitution is the bedrock of transparency, accountability, among others. And is also at the center of, constitutionally, where the state is bound to render services to you. The main attack on the rendering of those services is because you have political persons creating the organizational structure that must ultimately culminate in you getting the services that you deserve. So you're not going to get the water, the lights, and the basic services that existed 30 and 40 years ago without effort. Because the persons that are appointed to do that are all part of a structure which from its top right to the very bottom appear to be performing their tasks for political considerations, and not because of the rule of law, and not because of the obligations inherent with the posts that they hold. And this is what the court pointed at in Glenister when it said, far be it then to assume, and this was in respect of the Scorpions being disbanded, for those that haven't read that judgment. And the court pointed at the fact that the Scorpions was a mechanism that the state was obliged to have in order to deal with losses from the fiscus and corruptive practices. And with the proposal to bring in an agency like the DPCI, the argument went that if they, and as long as they reported to politicians, then who's to say that if politically proximate persons were implicated in the pillage and the rape of the state, that the law would apply to them? This is why I say, low to you and I, if we go 20 kilometers above the speed limit, we will face the consequences. When last in South Africa have you found any high-profile person being held to account in terms of the rule of law and the Constitution? I've served 33 years in the space that I operate in. I've seen 2 presidents, and like Xolani correctly said, my biggest crime is that I am involved, or my firm is involved, in no less than 30 or more of the top high-profile corruption cases in this country. Each and every one of those cases involved senior politicians that you guys see on TV every day. And most of those cases, if you look at them collectively, would be able to liquidate the shortages for this VAT 0.5 increase that people are fighting about. So if the recommendations in the reports that I had completed over the last, let's just give it the last 7 years, had been implemented, if the asset forfeiture and the rest of the processes were followed through and finalized, and if the prosecutions were concluded in a timely manner, with due regard for the rule of law and the Constitution, I can tell you KZN would have been a different place. I stand here with a target on my back. I stand here being vilified and attacked on every front, having to fight over the last 6 years out of my own pocket for ratepayers and taxpayers sacrificially. Not because I want to be thanked or want to receive any accolade, but because I see it as a duty, as my obligation in this short walk that I have in the earth. And I'm thankful to my wife because each time I go through the difficulty, she says to me, I'd rather you die and I bury you and tell my kids that their dad died for something. In conclusion, I love this country. I love the people of this country. And that's the extent to which I'm prepared to pay. I believe in justice. I believe in righteousness. I just think that society as a whole are becoming somewhat selfish because we look at our own little corners, and when we have an issue and there's no electricity, we put up a solar system. And when there's no water, we dig a borehole. We are not confronting the root cause of the problem. We have people in positions that abuse every mechanism of the legal system. They hijack the organizational structure of every organ of state, put persons in positions that will be rewarded in accordance with political considerations rather than the upholding of the rule of law and the performance of their duties and functions. This is the problem. And we fund startups, and we fund persons that come with political promise and solutions, but we give less funding to the war that each and every one of us should be waging against those in power. It cannot continue, and it ought not to be, that a few scoundrels and rotten apples are allowed to cause people like my wife to live in fear each time I leave the house, concerned whether I will return. We have come to a point where they call wrong right and right wrong. We look at, by way of example, just the Tegwini municipality case. I won't go into the details of the case, I'm not permitted to. But questions need to be asked by concerned citizens as to what is going on in respect of the circumstances surrounding that case. Why does it appear that justice cannot be meted out in the face of the abundance of evidence? I speak confidently about the abundance of evidence because there are several judgments which we've procured in the High Court where the same evidence that I procured, compiled, and put together was used. Where those judges made rulings favorable to the state. Assets were seized and have already been disposed of by judgments. Why is it then, and that is in respect of the asset forfeiture side, why is it then on the criminal side that 7 years later you're still limping on and the case can't proceed? Why is it that witnesses are being interfered with, mafia style, one after the other, and society looks on and says, blissfully, it's not my issue? Those witnesses are like myself, sacrificial lambs, putting their lives on the line so that you can have a life subject to the rule of law. They put daily, and this is why I gladly will give my life, because I'm motivated by the sacrifice that they made to come forth and tell the truth about the rot that's happening in eThekwini. A municipality with a 70 million rand budget, more than 40% of which is pillaged annually. Your rates. I'm not talking about what I've heard. Anybody who challenges me, I can produce every piece of evidence to support what I'm saying. Decades of evidence that I've collected. And so they are attacked, and so they are vilified. And they are not attacked and vilified by masked persons. They are attacked by what the court in Glenister said is the problem. The judges in Glenister said, because these organs of state are headed by political appointees, it's more than likely they will take political considerations. So now you have a situation where you have politically proximate persons implicated. The evidence, I'm allowed to say this, my reports were made discoverable, I think, 4 years ago. And any person with gray matter between his 2 ears that understands the laws of our land, and at least the laws of evidence, basically, they would have had me in the witness stand, they would have cross-examined me, and they would have tore me to shreds if the evidence that I had produced didn't meet legal muster. I have not been in that courtroom, and I don't envisage to be there, not because of any dealings of my own. There are machinations afoot. There are puppet masters controlling the movements and the activities of this and several other cases. You sit and you look at case after case, so-called high-profile state capture cases. Several excuses are made. It is alleged we don't have forensic capacity. This was said by the president, this was said by the head of the NPA, this was said by senior leadership of the DPCI. I'm a seasoned and qualified practitioner with more than 33 years of serving this country as a specialist forensic practitioner. I have given litigation support pro bono to the NPA and the DPCI for decades at huge cost to myself, for free. They say they don't have capacity. They need our capacity, and it's in writing. And there are several records of where they've said this in public. Then the question is, if you are so desperate for this capacity, when you have it, and when the holder of capacity produces the evidence that is irrefutable against politicians, why won't you call that person and say, take the stand, testify, and tell the nation? Why? Society sits and looks and says, the NPA are doing well, they're doing their job. Society sits and says, no, the DPCI are doing their job. My question is, how can they be when there are laws, there are norms and standards, there are guidelines, there are rules that regulate what they should do if their cases are being interfered with? Babita Deokaran paid with her life. Very recently, in the Omotosa cases, one of the ladies paid with their lives that was a social justice activist. And so it goes. Sindiso Magaka, one of the leaders within the ANC that tried to expose corruption. All these met bad fates. And when Xolani says that we too are running the risk of facing that fate, it's a genuine reality, guys. Ask yourself then, do we still have a country? Are we still acutely aware or in support of the rule of law as citizens? Or are we going to sit by quietly and allow people like Gumede, people like Koko and others that are charged, and I'm sorry to mention names, but this is in the public domain, they've been charged for state capture, several of them. You know their names. Are we going to allow them to go through processes where they get taken to court and those cases collapse? And we watch the symptoms of the collapse as they are happening, but we just fail to piece it all together and then attend to it. I'm saying, in conclusion, from where I stand, I appeal to you this day to declare no more, one, and don't look away. Go back to what the judges said 2015 in Glenister. Deal with the root cause. Deal with the issues of people being put in place and in positions and you being lied to and told it's going to get better because we've put in a new head at this office and we've put in a new head at that office. You need to ask yourself, who does that head take instructions from when you and I are not looking? You cannot have all these cases with volumes of evidence against wrongdoers in the country and none of them are being held to account. That means the system has failed. I'm closing by saying, you say today no more.
Thanks. Before questions and answers, can I do this thing? There is someone in this room. I went out, I was searching for him, and then it happened that under the stone, I get hold of him. You remember there was kind of a catastrophe in the province. It's known as the July unrest. And lots of business people suffered. Families were living in fear. And everything was upside down. It was like a revolution. And on the newspapers, on television, and so forth, there was one man that was being hunted. And that was Xolani Dube. And Xolani Dube, that's the guy. I hope you remember. If it was two days after the unrest and he is in this room, surely we're going to kill him. Because we were told that this is the guy who caused that mayhem. And why I brought him here, because Robbie is here as well. And Prince is here, and Leo is here. These are the weavers of our country who are trying to build something. And he was projected as someone who wanted to destroy this country. And so I'm not the judge. I want him to tell us why he was trying to do that, if really he was the mastermind. If you remember very well, you can Google him. He was wanted by everyone. But here he is.
Thank you very much, Program Director Xolani. Oh, he's whispering. Oh, thank you very much. I've been humbly requested to give my profile. I've been humbly requested to give my profile. So I will honor that Program Director. And I have 10 minutes. Quickly. Firstly, it's a great honor to be part of this important meeting. And thank you very much, Program Director, for affording me this opportunity. And also, I wish to extend my gratitude to the team that has been working with you to ensure that we have this important meeting. Most of all, my greatest appreciation or gratitude goes to Rob, Prince, and Leo for sharing valuable information and enlightening presentation. In summary, what I've heard so far is that on the wall we have characteristics of a failed state. It's not me saying so. We have characteristics of yes. Oh, thank you so much. Why? Political corruption at a high rate, overwhelming crime that is uncontrollable, ineffective judiciary system, weak governance. Now, as I've been requested to state my profile, I've spent 40 years in the Department of Intelligence and Security. I come from a humble family, the Jomo family, hailing from Kranskop. I was raised by a family that fears God greatly. And my great-grandparents were intellectuals, R.R. Jomo and his brother. Some of you may know those great icons who contributed greatly in our literature. And they also contributed in the formation of Izimvo Zabantu, which was later a newspaper called Ilanga Lasenatal. They were the first editors of Ilanga Lasenatal. I grew up in Durban and became active in ensuring that we have a free, non-racial, democratic South Africa. In 1985, I integrated as one of the members who were to be part of the South African Police Services Protection Services. I then further went to be part of the elite special task force unit within our SAPS. Later, I went to do further training in USA in intelligence and counter-terrorism. Further to that, I went to do further training in Russia, which was advanced intelligence training management. I have done many training courses in security, domestic and abroad. I did my international relations BA degree, and later I then went to do my honors degree specializing in political science. Last year, I just completed my master's degree in leadership studies. Now, researchers normally, or their assignment, is to collect data using methodologies to analyze it and to present their findings. Quite similar with the intelligence services. We collect information, they collect information, analyze information, interpret information for decision makers to make informed decisions. In a nutshell, I think I've covered my profile, Xolani. Now, I want to say it takes boldness and courage to go through undiscovered territories. It takes courage and boldness to go through uncharted terrains. Now, these are characteristics that I see this morning in this room, where Rob is bold and courageous to raise his fears about the potential economic collapse of our country. Similar sentiments have been echoed by Prince to say if we don't invest in our youth, there is no bright future for this country. Those are leadership traits which I call leadership. Now, that is what is missing in our country. We don't have leadership. What we have is inept leadership, weak leadership, in a sense that no one is bold to say, we have a crisis. We have a mess. How did we come to be where we are? And what are the solutions that will take us out of this economic collapse? Now, what brought me here is the fact that we are discussing doom and boom for our economy, which is at the best interest of our young people. We will be selfish if we were to be quiet and not think about investing in the bright future of this country for the next generation. That is what brought me to be here. You've said we must be fair, robust, and honest. Now, in the context, this setup, Xolani, that you've arranged, if I may give a brief historic context of business expressing boldness and courage. In 1985, 1984, 1985, 1986, a small group of white business sector with liberals who were anti-apartheid government, took an unpopular decision, subjected themselves to threats, subjected themselves to harassment, and you all know the history of the brutality of the apartheid government then. ANC government, ANC liberation movement then was a no-go zone. They took a stance because they were clear and understanding very well the economic structure and challenges that sanctions was bringing for the future of this country. Now, in the process, I must also acknowledge and pay tribute to the late president of Zambia, President Kenneth Kaunda, who hosted that meeting in his presidential lodge in Zambia. Now, parallel to that, Neil Barnard and Kutse, who were in the security services, were parallel working on discussing with Mandela and other leaders of the ANC to ensure that we have a peaceful negotiated settlement and avoid bloodbath in our nation. And the fruits of that is this gathering today. Now, there are parallels. So, it is by grace again that we are all standing and coming together to plan the bright future for our children. Now, the question will arise: are we using history as the compass that must guide us to the destination in the future by analyzing political, economic, and social challenges of the day, not to repeat the mistakes we made in the past? That's the question that we must all answer. Now, moving forward, it is therefore important. I omitted to mention that I am standing here representing the TD Foundation. I am not a member of any political party. I represent TD Foundation, which seek to answer what Prince alluded to, that we've got to invest in the future of the young people by offering young people quality education, skills for them to meet the demand of the fourth industrial revolution. That is the assignment we have. Now, I got worried, which will be my question to Rob, that he feels strongly that social responsibility is corporate social responsibility is not worth in a nation that is engulfed by corruption. Now, I want to say it is important, but Rob will answer the question. Civil society is key and instrumental in contributing to economic growth. What made this meeting possible today? It is the work of Xubera Institute, which is a civil society. Now, let us invest. This is my appeal. Let us invest in civil society because they contribute in the economy and in ensuring that we fight corruption, as Leo was alluding to the challenges. Equally to that, civil society ensures that we prepare young people with skills for the bright future of this country. Let me ask a hard question to Rob as I am sitting down. There is an issue which bothers me as well, that 90% of the economy of this country is in the hands of the few white investors. Now, I know that for the past 30 years, government policies have failed to address transformation in the economic sector. What do we do, Rob, to address that question, since World Bank is saying we are a worse country when it comes to the levels of inequality? Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can sit here. Sorry, Bob. You can sit. Yeah. You must not run away. It's here. And so I would like to talk about about 10, let me start with 5 questions. And then after the 5 questions, you can direct those questions to anyone. And no preamble, no presentation, just straightforward question. You know those questions that we hate in exam? One question. We hate to discuss. Remember when they say analyze and discuss, we hated that. And so I'm giving you an opportunity now to ask one question. Let them do it and then it will be after. And so can we have those 5 hands that will ask one question, not discussion, no preamble, nothing. Can I see hands? You'll introduce yourself. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, the last one. Okay, and so after that, there is no question. It will be Rob or Prince or Leo and the others. And then they will simply do the closing remarks so that we can finish the day. I'm coming, Rob.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabani Zulu. I'm hoping my question is going to lead me to explaining myself, but I won't. Gentlemen, do you know what the ANC is capable of? Thank you.
Do you know, can you repeat it?
Do you know what the ANC is capable of?
One, two. They always say the last kick of a dying animal is vicious. But die, it will die. But you must not be next to it when it kicks.
Hello. Hi, Rob. My name's Andrea. I'm curious because you didn't speak too much about KZN. And I know you can't speak about KZN without speaking about South Africa as a whole. You did mention that you're about a 4 out of 10 on your positivity on South Africa. And I'm wondering if that's Western Cape 6 out of 10, and then KZN 2 out of 10, and then that evens out to around a 4. So and I also know you mentioned like a lot of your businesses seem to be based in the Western Cape. I'm just curious about what your view is on KZN.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Alison Skuman, community activist, ratepayers associations, putting together a team of engineers to help fix the city. All of those caps are west. I've been very involved in the last 2 years in the space and trying to fix eThekwini specifically. I'm also an attorney by profession. I've got 3 questions. The one question is to my learned friend in the legal industry. Do you think the Constitutional Court is compromised? Second question, perhaps Rob and the political analyst can answer. Do you think politics at local government works, and should it not be removed? In other words, local government must focus purely on service delivery. After all, that's what it's supposed to be there for. And lastly, do you believe that there must be some form of qualifying criteria in terms of education for our politicians? They are serving the people, they have got fiduciary positions, yet many of them can't even read and write. And isn't that testimony to the extent of the decay and the collapse that we are experiencing today?
There was a hand. Oh.
Thank you. My name is Jablan Mabas. I don't seem to get an appreciation that politics, it's a numbers game. How do we move? Rob spoke about we must get rid of the ANC. How do we move from where we are to get to the numbers that will give us the solutions we are looking for? We cannot move our eyes away from the fact that Umkhonto weSizwe is 45% influential in this province. That cannot be ignored. And my last point is, I'm not a politician, but I think we would not be doing justice in this country if we'd not say, for the purposes of general masses, if we not say thank you to the DA for fighting for the voiceless to get this VAT increase scrapped.
Thanks. I'm not sure it's because you are in this room that a native will thank the DA, or maybe that's how South Africa is evolving now, to say the issue of skin pigmentation is no longer an issue, but what is more important is the common interest. No one asked Babu Dlomo, because there's an issue. We can talk as much as we want, but is our country secured? Are we not going to expect any catastrophe in the future? Because when we say only 7 million who pay our tax, and the 2/3 depend on the social grant, I think we are sitting on a time bomb. And we are not asking that. I think I will ask him how secured we are as a country. Because this is a very important thing. You can't have a factory or any business not knowing maybe in 3 years' time it might be looted or someone is going to come and loot it. Okay.
I've got a question for Leo. I want to know who's pulling Shamila Batoy's strings.
Look, let me start with Makeba. Tawani Zulu asked a question about what it is that, a rhetorical one. I don't want to delve into the political space, but say to the citizenry that what can be done is, as Xolani had said, everybody's got a voice. I think this will answer Xolani and the gentleman that thanked the DA here just now. I think what people need to do is take up or take civil responsibility a lot more seriously. Accountability is at the heart of our problems. Government officials at every level are not being held accountable, and that's why I come back to the allegory of the speed limit. It is you and I that are the taxpayer and the normal citizen that are held accountable. I'm sure many of you have written an email and have asked for government officials at every level. You've picked up a phone and phoned an office. You've complained. You've tried at the ends of pulling your hair out to hold people accountable and keep them to a standard. There's no consequences for anybody. That's at the heart of it. So to deal with what Makeba asked about, are we aware of what the ANC does, leaving politics aside but looking at the systems put in place by the leadership of the country now. They're not conducive of accountability. They're not conducive of good governance. And because of those factors, they're equally not going to be conducive of service delivery. And as long as you allow people not to be held to account for their failures, It can be any political party in leadership. But if the rule of law is not upheld and people are not made to feel the consequences of their betrayal of society, be it the ANC or any other political party, we're going to have the same situation that we find ourselves in. I think your question I don't want to entertain, but what I will say is, without pointing at individuals, there are a group of well-meaning, excellent, hard-working, sacrificial people within the NPA, within the Hawks, within the intelligence space, within the asset forfeiture unit, within SARS, and all the other role players that are constitutionally put in place to deal with the scourge of corruption and state capture. There's a minority, however, because of political interference and malafides behind the scenes, where people are given posts and positions based on whether they will succumb to political instructions. In essence, what this means, it indirectly answers your question. Because what it means then is that while you have persons who are statutorily and constitutionally placed in certain positions and they are delegated state authority and power, they are not in fact the ones that exercise that power. Because you have backroom meetings and late night calls on secret apps where people receive instructions. And this is what the court pointed to, Constitutional Court pointed to, by the way, in a nuanced way from the judgment I spoke about earlier, to say that this is the root cause, that while you may have a head of a particular office, be it the NPA, or the head of the DPCI, ask the right questions as civil society. Will those people hold to account their fellow colleagues when they let a case slip? Will those people at the top, the very top, even at ministerial level, hold to account a head in a policing unit that fails to successfully collect, preserve, and present evidence so that you can have justice? No consequences. You see case after case falling apart out of court. Have you seen anybody from in those organs of state being held to account? So don't limit it to one individual within that structure. Ask about accountability in general. I think there's one last question at the back there about the Constitutional Court and whether the Constitutional Court is indeed captured. Again, politicians, we, in my last 33 years, have noticed this, and I know that people will come for me after this, but we have the evidence to back it up. We've seen a supine and systemic penetration of every sphere of the organs of state, to the extent to which politicians seek to insulate themselves from accountability and consequences by trying to break down or penetrate, firstly, all office holders that can impact on the nefarious actions of rape and pillage of the state resources. Simply put, the politicians' greatest desire is to control all decision makers in society that can hold those politicians to account. So while I won't agree that the Constitutional Court is captured as a whole, but I equally will not say that there are not certain human beings who are susceptible to the temptations of taking subtle advices in backrooms. Some of them are judges, some of them, last year, you may have seen one of my cases where we arrested or facilitated the arrest. I compiled the forensic work, the criminal work, and the litigation support work for an acting judge. So no one is beyond reproach. We opposed their bail, and the person that listened to the opposed bail application, successfully too, I think we were the first in KZN's history to have successfully opposed the bail of a sitting judge. It hasn't been done. But when they took her an appeal, amazingly, the person that heard the appeal, the acting judge, there are questions. Serious questions, ma'am, that's asking about the judiciary. Questions that relate to the relationship between the person that was standing before that judge, and we have evidence to show that there's a relationship map between them. And the decision went in his favor. The opposed bail application granted by the court quo was overturned and the guy's released on bail after about a few months. But it happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much once more, Program Director. I've been asked, how safe is South Africa? Now, in my response, I don't want to bring fear or paralysis. Now, some of you will recall the report in the book of Numbers when spies came back and reported on what was happening on the other side. Now, I don't want to do that in this room, and I don't want to spoil all good presentations, informative, that have been presented. But however, if you have a situation of 60.2 young people who are unemployed, that's a recipe for an uprising. If you have 60.2% of young people who are unemployed and high rate of poverty, that's a recipe for a disaster. Now, we've been forewarned by academics and some leaders, but we are failing to take note and to learn not to deal with this mess that we are facing as a nation. So absolutely, we have an internal crisis, which is a recipe for a catastrophe. Is there any possibility for the next unrest? Absolutely. Absolutely. Unless you come with a framework and programs that will keep young people out of drugs, in schools learning, building and supporting entrepreneurship, then your question, Xolani, is answered. Now, I did not mention that my research was on leadership attributes critical important for conflict resolution and management in conflict that is in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. It was a very strange topic from my supervisors and the team that had to approve the research, but my justification or what helped me to support the study was that we seem to be not taking serious that the conflict that we see in Mozambique can be in South Africa. Where there is marginalization of young people, where there are high levels of corruption, if you have a situation where there is poor governance, there are strong possibilities that your security is compromised. Now, what does that mean to business people? I mean, to business sector present today? You have an opportunity to grow your business. I don't know how you'll analyze it, but this is a huge opportunity to grow business. We have a serious international cybersecurity threat. I don't know how informed, how proactive is our intelligence threat as business sector. That is serious threat, which I believe out of this meeting, we must have follow-up sessions as to how best do we secure our businesses from cyber hackers, how best can we neutralize the threat of domestic unrest as civil society, as business sector. Certainly, Xolani, we can do so much. Thank you very much.
It's becoming, for me, this is my most interesting part, As I said, is someone who has been in that corridor, is someone who knows almost everything that our country is heading when it comes to security. We have been a chief.
Yes, as a former counterintelligence chief, but don't get me into trouble. Yes. Now, when you have poor governance, your institutions are collapsing. That's the parallel findings we presented in Mozambique. Now, your security cluster certainly will be in paralysis. Thank you.
Thanks. Lockdown, not serious stuff. In terms of, when he talks about these things, like you are near to your, the fall of the country. But we have Prince here who's going to raise our spirit. I can see the tension.
No, I'm not going to raise any spirit. I don't have such powers. Look, here's the bottom line. Our country is burning. That's the bottom line. When your country burns, you can no longer rest on your laurels. Each individual must ask himself or herself, what do I do? The choices are two. You pack up your bags and run. That's option number one. This is not time to speak in tongues. Got to face each other in the face and tell each other what we are faced with. Option number one, pack up your bags and leave. Option number two is to fight. Those are the two options that we are facing. I've chosen to fight. So those who want to fight, you are on my side. But we are fortunate we're not using guns when we fight. We are lucky that in South Africa we can fight using words. This is extremely important. Elsewhere on the continent, if you did what I did, by now I would be an ancestor. And my great-grandchildren would actually come and to my grave at night because they wouldn't want even to associate with my grave. So we're lucky. We still have an opening robe to do what we are doing. But we must, when you fight, you must identify the enemy clearly so that you know who is the enemy. The enemy of South Africa today is the African National Congress. I repeat, the enemy of South Africa today is the African National Congress. There was a time when the enemy of South Africa was the National Party. And brave citizens at the time said it. Others were scared to say the National Party is the enemy. And nobody believed at the time that the National Party could actually be taken out of power. People died. People are dying today. So, ladies and gentlemen, you must make a choice. Are you going to fight or are you going to pack up your bags? That's the choice. So how do you fight? You must identify with compatriots in your local area, at a provincial level, at a national level, and say, what is it that we can do together to, number one, bring down the ANC? The ANC we must get rid of it. If you don't get rid of the ANC, you will not begin to rebuild because the thieves are there running our state. You may worry about Umkhonto weSizwe because we are in KZN, it's a gentleman there, game of numbers. Let me tell you, and I say this because people don't believe me. Umkhonto weSizwe will not feature in South Africa's future. Umkhonto weSizwe is held together by one glue. That glue is called Jacob Zuma. The day Jacob Zuma departs from this earth, believe you me, that thing is going to fall apart like a house of cards. If you look at the collection of people who are in it, those people can never cohere ideologically. They have no ideology as we speak, Umkhonto weSizwe. They are all over the show, and it's good, number one. Number two, they will fight like there is no tomorrow when Zuma is no longer there. But they are actually playing a very important historic role. They are unwittingly helping good citizens to hit the last nail into the coffin of the ANC in South Africa. So a moment is coming when all of these parties who are worried about EFF will not be factors. We'll have to start afresh. Even the DA will not be the future of this country if it doesn't change. We'll have to say, clean canvas. What do we do with our country? So, I'm a soldier fighting, and what are my tools? I'm part of those who want to build an institution to bring the best white minds and the best black minds, young, and we get it into their heads that they are the future guardians of this country. And we train them properly so that in 15 years, they make sure that they lead this country in the right direction. That's my mission, that's my fight. Thank you.
Taban, you wanted to say something? Taban, you wanted to say something? You need a treadmill. Can you come?
Thank you very much. I just feel compelled, ladies and gentlemen, to ask if we are asking ourselves the right questions and if we are giving to ourselves the right responses. I believe that we are dealing with a government that frankly does not care. And I believe that we probably need a two-pronged approach. One is, how do we fight with a government that doesn't care within an environment that is legislated that says we cannot get rid of them as quickly as we would like to? How do we find amongst ourselves the right brains and then protect them? I ask the question deliberately. Do we know what the ANC government is capable of? Because I was actually triggering in our minds to say, how do we as a collective protect the likes of Leo, the likes of Rob, the likes of Prince, the likes of... I believe we leave good people on their own. And we allow them to fight our battles without us giving them the necessary support. And we leave them to try, quite frankly. And we probably need to find amongst ourselves mechanisms of how we are going to protect these people against our government as we fight these wars. Ujabulani asked a question. Are we aware of the game of numbers? And I would like to go to that question. South Africa is majority black, minority white. That's the reality. And majority black respond in a particular way to the political dynamics of our country. They have moved from the ANC because I think they are probably disillusioned, very unhappy, extremely distraught on the trajectory that the ANC has taken. But they've not moved to the DA. They've formed a new trouble called MK, because they are not responding to the essence of the politics. They are responding to race. And they're saying we are going to have to find a race that we can identify with. And it's not going to be a white party, it's going to be another black party. So when the DA goes, when the ANC goes, when MK goes, when all of this, I think Prince said, a new canvas, I think we are going to have another race-based political dynamic in South Africa. Maybe new political parties, but definitely we are going to have a race-based political dynamic. And we've got to change that. We've got to try and find a mechanism to have a South African political response, not a race-based political response. And that is what I fear we are going to have in South Africa going into the future. Now, how do we do that? We've got to look at the material conditions of the races in which South Africa operates and say black equals poor, white equals privileged. How do we integrate the races in such a way that they coexist as races and they don't have this split amongst ourselves? Because poor people believe their poverty is caused by white minority capital. That's what they believe in. And they believe that our biggest enemy in South Africa is whiteness. Now, we all know that's not true, but that's the reality in which we operate as a society. And we as a society need to try and integrate ourselves into the social dynamics of our country and say, white does not equal privilege, poor does not equal black, we can coexist. Can we form businesses in South Africa that are both black and white existing together? Can we form schools in South Africa that are integrated, wholly integrated? Can white people not go to an umlazi and take their kids there and say, you are going to school there? Can black people not go to a Durban North and say, you are going to school there? Can we have hospitals that are going to be integrated? To Prince Mshieni has white people going into that hospital as patriots, just as much as Entabeni Hospital will have black people. We are forming 2 or 3 societies as South Africa. And unfortunately, for as long as we continue with those 2 societies in South Africa, we are always going to have race-based politics. We will always, it may be DA, ANC, it may be MK and another party, it may be another party and another party, but we will always have race-based politics in South Africa until such time that we find ourselves as a society and say, can we integrate ourselves? Can we let go of these walls that are between us as races in South Africa and coexist as one unity? Thank you.
And so, this is Rob is doing the closing.
First, I want to thank Benedict, Xolani Dube, and the Xubera Institute. What a great morning. And what a great morning for me sitting here. I learned so much from the other 3 speakers. I really did open my eyes, and I found it fascinating. So I'd love it to have gone on for a lot longer. I like to be able to ask them lots of questions. But I'll just quickly wrap up by saying the following, saying I see South Africa as money machine, media machine, civil society machine, political machine. And we're in between elections right now. So the political machinations are going to happen as they happen. There's not a lot we can do about it unless they're municipal elections. But the money machine is in this room and is overseas. There are 35 South African-born dollar billionaires living overseas and 5 living in South Africa. The 2 richest people in Los Angeles. The 2 richest people in Los Angeles are South African-born. Elon Musk, number 1. Patrick Soon-Chong from the Eastern Cape, number 2. Owns the LA Lakers, the LA Tribune, both South African. And I can name hundreds of people worth between 100 and 700 million US dollars that are South African, that are overseas, and none of them are investing in South Africa. But it's a massive money machine, and they still care because their parents are here, their cousins are here, they've got houses here, and they have this love for this country even though they've cut the cord. Money machine. Media machine. Cancel your IOL subscription. Dump News 24, their ANC bootlickers, and dump your DSTV subscription because they donate to the ANC. You are perpetuating evil. And don't sign up for the extra special level for Daily Maverick. I mean, just read the free version, but don't give them any money because they're leftists and they hate business. On the media side, I'm announcing the Truth Report, fully funded, launching in 3 weeks, and it's pulling together all the center-right, Judeo-Christian podcasters, much like Trump did when he got into the Rogan Report and it made all the difference. He ignored mainstream media. We're doing the same thing. 3 weeks' time it launches. Press subscribe. It's free. Press subscribe. Okay? We're going to try and launch a center media machine that satisfies the news that you need. And we're going to have a button on every single article where you can say if you think it's too left-wing, slightly left-wing, in the center, slightly right, too far right. That we can judge every single article, every single podcast by your views on it. 3, civic society. I know I said charity is not solving the root cause. I didn't say civic society. Civic society is fundamental. People here, the 4 of you, have been fighting the fight on our behalf and struggling to raise money for everything they do. Get behind them. I mean, you heard the story here. If I think I've had death threats, he's got a target on his back way, way brighter than mine. We need to provide capital, support what these 4 guys are doing, and get behind what it is. Civic society is fundamental. So there's AFRI Forum, there's Xubera Institute, there's Free Market Foundation, Institute of Race Relations. These are good organizations. Back them. And then finally, the political machine. Well, if we get the blank canvas, I can promise you I'm not launching a political party. I won't be on that blank canvas. But who knows? Maybe these 4 guys will be, and they'd be very, very good candidates. So let's back them. And then the final question, the 4 out of 10. Let me give you the rankings. America, 12 out of 10. Europe, 9 out of 10. Western Cape, 7 out of 10. Rest of South Africa, between 1 and 2 out of 10. And that's where we go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Benedict Xolani. What a great day.
I think we said that it's breakfast, and so we'll go outside and help ourselves. And lastly, I would like to thank also Ukai from Ensure. Thanks a lot, bro. And also there are people who come from all the way from Howick, the R&R estate. Thank you a lot. And they've invited me to give a talk. And my talk is about the last kick of a dying animal. And it is mainly about the property rights. Why? Let me say this. While there is still that vacuum, Prince, and the dying horse is kicking, they've sold everything. People are hopeless, and they know the tricks now. You can't go, ANC can't go and tell people about social grants, this and that. But there's only one card that is left now. That card is the property right. And all of us who are here, we come from the middle class. Once they pull that property right card, whether we are black or we are white, let me tell you something, you are going to be in trouble. And so the ANC is very capable. And they know that for them to be in power, they only have that card. And is the property right card. And so the animal is not yet going to die. It's going to checkmate. And it's up to us when they say checkmate, what do we do? Because these estates that we have from what you call Cotswold to Stain City, let me tell you something that can be something else. That's what happened in Zimbabwe. And so you have to understand that when Prince is saying we have only two options, to pack your bag and go or to fight. And the only fight that is left now for the middle class, I mean, I'm poor, I don't care, is the property right. Because once the property right card has been pulled out of the bag, it affects the whole financial institution of our country, the banks, name it. And so that the card that is left, I'll be giving that talk on the 31st about how to protect that card not to be pulled by the last kick of a dying animal. Thanks.